The kingdom is in panic because for the second straight year to start a season, the wide receiver production has been very lackluster. So I'm a man of the people and I created a list of top player candidates that the Kansas City Chiefs may trade for, wide receiver edition, before the trade deadline. So with that, let's cut the chit chat and let's have some fun. Social media is in a frenzy with Chiefs Kingdom, and they are in complete panic mode because for the second straight year, the Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers are not there. And a lot say they look worse this year than last year. And before we kick off this video, and before I give you a list of my top wide receiver trade candidates before the trade deadline, I'm going to kick it off and spoil it and say, I don't believe the Kansas City Chiefs need to make a trade, nor do I think they will. As I said yesterday in my recap video of the Kansas City Chiefs and the New York Jets, I believe the weapons are on this team, and I believe the depth on this team hurts them, in fact, because they got too many mouths to feed and they don't know what to do with it. But the number one option the Kansas City Chiefs need to do is increase the snap count of Rashee Rice. He is a playmaker, he is a dog, and he needs to adjust some things because we do know he has a dropping habit. Spend a little extra time on the jug machine, and if he resolves that, there is nothing stopping him from being great. We've seen what he does with the ball in his hands when it's yard after catch. Now, if you increase his snap count, his production will increase as well. And I believe he will be a legit threat on this offense. And I want to find out what we have in Rashee Rice and what we have in Justin Ross as well before we hit the trade wire and try to find a wide receiver out there. And now that we transition into that, what I'm going to do here is I'm not just going to list any name wide receivers because I believe if the Kansas City Chiefs are very interested in a wide receiver come the trade deadline, it's not just going to be any wide receiver. They already got the talent. They need to trade for a guy who was upright and outright better than everyone on the team and that can come in and produce right away. And that will be very hard to do. So let's kick this list off by not kicking this list off. And what I mean by that is popular names I've seen on social media. Bear with me. We're going to list them out. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. I almost said Cooper Rush. Why would I say something like that? Cooper Kupp and Terry McLaurin. Those are very popular names that Chiefs Kingdom are interested. There's no shot that's happening. No way in hell. The Kansas City Chiefs won't do that. And honestly, cap space permitting, I don't think it's possible. It's literally a smoke dream. So I'm not going to feed into that. So for anyone who's tuning in hoping I'm going to mention one of those names, I'm sorry. It's just not happening here. And honestly, the names I will list are also smoke dreams as well. But I could play around with it a little bit. So let's kick this off, and I'm going to kick it off, and I'm going to give y'all a 2-for-1 special, and we're going to focus on them Atlanta Falcons because for some reason, their head coach does not know how to use that talent. And if the Kansas City Chiefs want to fork up and give high draft picks, you either are going to look at a guy like Kyle Pitts. Yes, tight end, but he's like a hybrid. Tight end, wide receiver, he's a weapon. And Drake London. I can see those being two curious guys that would pique Brett Veach's interest. Now, I know this kind of makes me backtrack and eat my words a little bit because I said the Kansas City Chiefs should not go after unproven guys. And technically, when you look at Drake London and when you look at Kyle Pitts, they have not done much on the NFL level, and you would kind of quote unquote label them as unproven first round picks. But I can't really blame them for that because when they do get the ball in their hands, they are playmakers. It's literally how the Atlanta Falcons used them. I really don't think this will happen, but if Brett Veach wants to trade a first and try to get one of these players, that may draw Arthur Smith and ownership to trade one of these guys. But it's highly unlikely. I believe Atlanta will feel they're in the running in a weak division and they feel like they have a case to move forward. And if the season goes raw towards the end of the year, it may be a discussion towards the offseason. But I think that is something I would be interested in if Kyle Pitts or Drake London does become available. Now, a lot of people aren't mentioning this next player, and maybe rightfully so, because he is on injured reserve and we just haven't heard much of him, but he is a proven receiver in this league, and currently we do not know what to make of this Pittsburgh Steelers offense, and he will be coming off the injured reserve before the trade deadline. And if the Pittsburgh Steelers offense continues to struggle, I would not be surprised if Brett Veach calls the Pittsburgh Steelers and just gives them a little inquiry about Deontay Johnson. He is not the best receiver out there, but if you add him to this Kansas City Chiefs roster, he instantly becomes wide receiver number one. He's been a playmaker in this league. He is a difference maker with the ball in his hands, and he can be a legit threat for this offense. And that is something the Kansas City Chiefs need to zone in on. And if they can make it happen, this would be a sneaky, under the radar type of move that a lot of teams wouldn't expect. Now, this next one I saw popping off on my timeline everywhere, and I think it makes sense. And I think this would probably be the one I would be most interested in. And I think it would be a popular, fun pick as well, because as everyone mentioned on my live stream, the Kansas City Chiefs have gone Hollywood. They have made all news wires. They have been in the media everywhere. So why not trade for a guy like Hollywood Brown? And honestly, what he has done this year has been kind of impressive. With no quarterback, he has still shown he has been a lethal threat. Now, the Arizona Cardinals have been very competitive. May not have won many games this year, exactly one. If you get closer to the trade deadline and they still don't win games, they may become huge sellers. And if Brett Veach is very intrigued with Marquise Hollywood Brown, I can see him being a threat in this offense. And I know a lot of people can compare him to the kind of skill sets a lot of receivers have on our team. But if you trade for Hollywood Brown, he instantly is an upgrade, and he instantly is the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver number one. And I think he is that threat that Patrick Mahomes needs. Now last, but certainly not least, but this is probably the farthest of shots. This is a half-court shot. But when this player clicked in my head, I'm like, man, that would be fun. And he is a veteran wide receiver on the Seattle Seahawks, Tyler Lockett. Now, when you guys hear that name initially, you're like, there's no chance in hell. And you may be right. But I started thinking about the Seattle Seahawks team in depth. They are still contenders. They look like a legit team. They put a showing on Monday Night Football against the New York Giants. But if Brett Veach makes the right price to get a Tyler Lockett, listen, they have DK Metcalf. And they have a guy in the wings as Jackson Smith and Jigba. They can afford to lose a Tyler Lockett. And one, they're a run-heavy first team. So when they got guys like Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, the rookie, and then you got Noah Fant as tight end, I'm just saying, it may be a long shot, but anything can happen. And if Brett Veach goes that direction, that is a weapon that would solidify this team. He would instantly, I don't know, a lot of people say he's not a wide receiver number one, but on this team, he would be. And I wouldn't even view it like that, more of he's a sure-handed wide receiver. He's a playmaker. He is in his 30s, but that veteran presence is what this young wide receiving core needs, because it's what they are missing, and it would be a fun, sneaky pickup for me if it happens. But with that, Chiefs Kingdom, those are my few trade candidates. Unlikely, honestly, they really are. I don't see any of them happening, but if they were to happen, those are the players you should keep your eyes out for. Jump in the comments down below and let me know some wide receivers you are interested in, or should they run with what they got? They should. Rashee Rice, let that man ball out. Now with that, I'm checking out. Please be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you did like this video, please leave that big thumbs up. Y'all take care. Peace.